election results for the world's largest democracy as India re-elects its prime minister. New Zealand metalheads bring their indigenous sound to Toronto. Fans' excitement is at an all-time high during Raptors' playoff push. Humber News starts now.
Hi, I'm Alicia Mughal coming to you from our newsroom at Humber's North Campus. Thanks so much for joining us. Here's what's making news this hour. Narendra Modi of the BJP won the majority vote in the Indian election today. About 600 votes were cast and were still being counted before the Election Commission announced that the BJP won over 272 number of seats in the House of Parliament. The world's largest democracy held the election that spanned 6 weeks and was conducted in 7 phases. Supporters of Modi gathered to celebrate the momentous win. Modi has been the Prime Minister of India for 5 years, and this win will extend his reign for another 5. 6 people are dead as protests continued for a second night in Jakarta in the wake of election results. Demonstrations turned violent following the General Election Commission's announcement of last month's election results on Tuesday. The re-election of Indonesian President Joko Widodo over his opponent Prabowo Subianto sparked the protests in the center of the city. Protesters used tear gas, rubber bullets, rockets, and firecrackers when clashing with security forces. So far, 40,000 police officers have been deployed across the capital for security measures, and some social media platforms have been shut down. At least 3 people are dead after a tornado tore into Missouri's capital overnight, and rescue workers continue to work through today. The tornado slammed into the state capitol on Wednesday, just before midnight. The huge twister damaged buildings, toppled trees, power lines, and tossed around parked cars. The fire department is still sending rescuers to search for people in need of help. The exported garbage from Philippines will soon be sent back to Canada. Canada's government hired Balor Logistics Canada for a little over $1 million to collect the trash by the end of June. The government is holding the city of Whitby accountable for past exportation of garbage to the Philippines. Alberta's Premier Jason Kenney announced a bill yesterday in legislature to repeal the carbon tax.
I request leave to introduce Bill 1, the Carbon Tax Repeal Act.
Kenney's government claims that the repeal will create 6,000 new jobs in Alberta, but opposition leader Rachel Notley says that this plan is backwards. They also plan to challenge the federal government if they impose the carbon tax. The legislation will be effective May 30th if passed.
From Alberta's economy, and will put that money back in Albertans' pockets where it belongs.
Closer to home, the TTC launched a new ad campaign last week that shows travelers the consequences of not paying. The campaign comes after a report released by the city's auditor saying that the TTC lost at least $64 million because of fare evasion and broken Presto machines. In March and April, the TTC issued about 4,500 tickets to passengers caught evading fares. The ads are shown throughout this transit system, warning of fines of more than $400 for offenders. Also in the city, Toronto Mayor John Tory urges Torontonians to sign his new petition. The city launched a petition that demands the Ford government reverse the funding cuts that were announced in the provincial budget back in April. The cuts to childcare funding and to Toronto Public Health will leave a big hole in the city's budgets, the city says. The mayor says the PC government should work for the people they represent. Mayor Tory hopes the petition, if backed by Torontonians, will get the government to listen. At Enercare Centre, Mayor John Tory was also busy making Toronto the next global tech hub at the 3-day Collision Conference. Asmita Monday reports.
At Collision Conference, Mayor Tory spoke about the government's investments in infrastructure and policies to make Toronto one of the world's largest tech ecosystems.
We're going to be making sure that we support this to the hilt as a city going forward, because we have 3 years to have it here, and I hope it can be many, many more.
Paddy Cosgrave, CEO of Collision, expressed his confidence in Toronto taking over Silicon Valley, as many countries now have no access to US because of stringent visa regulations.
Some of the Iranian startups that are here today, some of whom are going to make Canada their permanent and Toronto their permanent home.
Several investment promotion agencies present at the conference have facilitated in attracting more foreign investments to tech industry.
Major global countries over the last 3 years have seen a downward trend in foreign direct investment. Canada is seeing a 20% increase in foreign direct investment and achieving what is now a 3-year all-time high in attracting capital.
Investors and startups across the world attending the conference got the advantage to network and grow their companies.
I've met a number of companies that I'm going to have some follow-on meetings with, and who knows, maybe they'll get some money.
At the Collision Conference Toronto, about 100 trade deals are being signed with different countries like Iran, UK, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and many others, making it one of the biggest global marketplaces. Today, John Tory showed his support and advocated to make Toronto the next global tech hub. Asmita Munde, Humber News.
A trio of teenagers sold out Toronto's Velvet Underground last week. Alien Weaponry hail from New Zealand and are taking the heavy metal scene by storm. Dan Hollingberry reports.
Alien Weaponry begin every live show with a haka, the ceremonial dance of New Zealand's indigenous Maori people. Pairing their own Maori heritage with heavy metal has won the band critical acclaim and a fan base from Auckland to Toronto. Bassist Ethan Trembath says that writing and performing in Maori hits home for them in a different way.
We're really honoured to be kind of deemed kids that are helping save the language.
And they are kids, as far as heavy metal bands go. Singer Louis de Jong and drummer Henry de Jong were just 8 and 10 when they formed Alien Weaponry, nearly a decade ago in their small hometown of Waipu, on New Zealand's North Island. Trembath joined a few years later.
And my mum couldn't pick me up after circus school, so I kind of went back to his place along with a bunch of other mates. His dad chucked me a bass, and along with heaps of other kids, trying it out, and I was the only kid there that could reach the end of the neck. So, they kind of said, band practice is next week, you're coming, and I guess I did.
First prize at the 2016 competition launched the band into superstardom. Their 2018 debut album topped New Zealand charts, and now the band are headlining their first world tour. Along for the ride are Louis and Henry's dad and manager Neil, whose Maori history lessons helped inspire some of the band's music.
But when we were young kids, we're like, that's boring, Dad. But when you actually listen to those stories properly, some of them are pretty gnarly and brutal. And what's more metal than writing about brutal shit?
Raising awareness about New Zealand's colonial past is just part of Alien Weaponry's sound. They also sing, in English, about everyday issues like social pressure, anxiety, and anger. Because when they step off stage, they're still just teenagers, like all their friends back home.
On one hand, it's like, man, this is amazing, and I'm really lucky to be doing this because no one else ever gets this. But it's like, on the other hand, it's like, is that like a regular childhood thing? Am I missing out on something else?
Yeah.
But it's also like we get enough time to be ourselves.
At home, the band hopes that New Zealanders are encouraged to look into their own Maori history.
At the end of the day, it's not really about how much blood percentage meth is, Māori. It's like if you have Māori ancestry and you connect with it and relate with your culture, you are Māori.
It's the kind of life any 17-year-old would dream of. Chicago tomorrow, Berlin next week, but for Alien Weaponry, the dream is a reality. With their North American tour almost closed up, the band looks to Europe, and beyond that, a new album. If a sold-out Toronto show is any record, there's a bright future for this New Zealand trio. Dan Hollingberry, Humber News.
In entertainment news, actor Geoffrey Rush received $2.9 million from an Australian tabloid that accused him of inappropriate behavior. The Oscar-winning actor who appeared in Pirates of the Caribbean was accused of being a major pervert by the tabloid. Upon winning the case, the Australian federal court ordered a compensation for the defamation in addition to $85,000 that was paid out earlier in April.
And I'll hand it to Mr. Rush. Jeffrey?
Do you feel vindicated, Mr. Rush?
Mr. Rush, you look forward to getting back to being an actor?
Mr. Rush,
Do you think it's something that will stay with you, regardless of today's
Going to take a quick break now. Still ahead for the latest in sports. But first, Pragati has a preview of your 3-day forecast.
The weather is cloudy and expected to be raining today. I will be back with a 3 days weather forecast. Till then, stay tuned with Humber News.